Olympic bobsledder Johnny
Quinn.
Johnny Quinn.
Well, when I entered the NFL, long story short, I became an NFL failure.
Just how he broke out of a locked bathroom by punching the door.
That's called a Russian remodel.
In case Johnny Quinn tried to bust down some of these antique doors, we didn't want that to happen.
To introduce today's guest, he is a powerhouse.
Look at the shoulders. He's 6 feet 220.
When someone finishes this podcast, they're probably going to be a little bit motivated.
You know, keeping yourself in safe environments.
I want to know, what are they doing this time 3 weeks from now? I was cut 3 times, lost $2.6 million in NFL contracts and blew out my knee. What you do when no one is looking or watching, when there's no Olympic stadiums, when there are no fans, no media crew, matters.
Up here, can't get the momentum.
That did not go well at all.
Incredibly excited to introduce today's guest. He is a powerhouse of both perseverance and grit. From NFL dreams not quite working out the way he'd wanted to competing in the Olympics. This is a remarkable individual who has broken through countless barriers. He's a renowned speaker. He's also the author of the book Push, Breaking Through the Barriers. He's inspired audiences worldwide with his message of resilience and building great teams. And it's an honor to have him here today. So please welcome the one and only Johnny Quinn. Johnny, so great to have you here.
James, thanks for having me on.
So I wanted to ask, you've done a lot of really impressive things. If people look at your resume, it's amazing. But I also know there's been setbacks along the way. And so my question to start us out with, can we really reach the highest levels of our potential without a string of failure along the way?
Well, it's interesting you share that, because what I uncovered after my first major failure, which was getting cut from the NFL, is that as I became an avid reader, James, because I needed to know, are there men and women further down the road of life than I was at the time? And if you have a massive failure or the string of failure, can you overcome it? And the more I dug into that, what I started to really realize, as much as I hate, I don't, and I would imagine all our listeners, we all kind of feel the same way. We don't enjoy failure. It's not fun. It's not something that we seek after. But I started to realize as I became an avid reader, it's almost a prerequisite for success, because it builds in you resilience, perseverance, determination, grit, these characteristics that can springboard you forward. So as tough as failure can be, and as much as we don't like failure, it is a requirement to break through barriers or to continue to move that ball down the road of success that you're traveling.
When you look at your career, is there one, what we would call failure, that would stand out among the rest that was the most difficult in the moment?
Well, when I entered the NFL, long story short, I became an NFL failure. I was cut 3 times, lost $2.6 million in NFL contracts and blew out my knee. And so that did not go well at all, right? Yeah, not good. But I want to echo, it was the first cut, because that was the first time, as much as all 3 of those hurt, and losing that kind of money at that level is brutal. But the first time somebody came in and said, Johnny, you're not good enough. We're not keeping you around. We're not letting you develop. As a matter of fact, Johnny, today we are cutting you. Contract gone, job gone, opportunity gone. The first time that happens, James, brutal. Because why? You're in this phase of being unknown. You're in an area of you don't know what's next, because up to this point, I'd always been good at football. And so as I look back now, these moments of failure did carve the path to what I'm currently doing now. But at the time, it's the first one that always hurts the most. Why? Because it's unknown. You're in this cast of uncertainty, doubt. The world is falling apart. And when that happens for the first time, very tough.
And what did you do during that time? Like, you get cut, obviously you got to tell your friends at some point. Everybody finds out about it.
Right.
How long was that period of just introspection? I'm assuming there was a period of introspection before you, in a sense, got back on the horse.
Yeah, so I was in my early 20s, and so I'm fresh out of school. I just signed a 3-year deal, $1.2 million. Get cut, that gets taken away. And so as a 22-year-old, fresh out of college guy, I probably didn't mourn the loss as much as I should have. Now that I'm, now that I'm 40, I would have mourned it. I should have mourned it longer. I was angry. I was frustrated. I was mad. Wanted to get back on the horse, and I did. But I think I didn't learn valuable lessons early on that I could have. But what helped me during that time, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, is I became an avid reader. So think about this: 22 years old. For some reason, now I need to read. I get cut from football. Why have I become an avid reader? And I alluded to because I needed to know, James, can people come back from a devastation, from a failure? And the answer is yes. And so that is set in motion this continual growth of what am I reading? What am I watching? What am I listening to? Of always looking to push the barrier in content that I consume so that when I do run into failure, and I still do, we all do. And but how do you navigate that? And so it was the first one that hurt, and I could still look on it and remember like it was yesterday.
When you mentioned about reading, which I totally agree with, what would be one or two books that have been significant influences for you?
Yeah, Atomic Habits by James Clear. I think they've sold like 13 million. I mean, it's just insane. I mean, he's a New York Times bestselling author like every week. He's not getting knocked off that. That's been a very one that around this idea of building habits. So he does a great job unpacking that. Another one is called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. Fantastic read, particularly in the digital age that we live in, where attention spans are narrowing down. We have options galore on everything. I mean, think about going to the grocery store and you go down the peanut butter and jelly aisle. I mean, James, there's 27 different strawberry jellies. I mean, it's insane, right? And so we're getting pulled in all this direction about hurry. So this book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, been an absolute game changer.
Funny that you would mention that. I was reading that book last month, and sometimes books come at a certain time for you. Maybe It wasn't the right time for me, because in that book he's talking about like we're always looking to hurry. Like you go to the grocery store, right? Let's look for the shortest line. Yeah. But as I'm reading it, like of course I'm looking for the shortest line. Why would I want to spend any more time in here? So
yeah.
Anyways, fantastic though. That's great. Did you go to the CFL before the NFL, or was that after?
Yeah, I got cut 2 times in the NFLs with the Bills. Got cut. Green Bay Packers got cut. Agent can't find a team in the NFL, sends me to the Canadian Football League. And so, as an American going to the Canadian Football League, a little bit different. 3 downs instead of 4. There's a goalpost in the middle of the end zone. Hey, that's unique. And but it was what I realized, James, is I was facing some adversity. We all go through adversity. And so I just thought, I'm on this unique path. I've had to do it the hard way before. I'm going to earn some playing time in Canada. I'm going to get great film. And my agent's going to get this thing back on track. And boy, was I wrong. I got to Canada, make the team, finally get on the starting star on the roster, score my first professional football touchdown, right? I'm trending in the right direction. And then, James, 1 week later, I blow out my knee, torn ACL. And so at this point, 3 cuts, blown out knee. I'm damaged goods. I look like damaged goods on paper. And that was the end of my professional football career.
Well, playing in Canada is an interesting place. Obviously, there's some amazing people who've gone through there. Doug Flutie, Warren Moon. I actually grew up in Canada, so I grew up on the CFL.
Oh, nice.
I mean, you were playing in Saskatchewan. That's some cold weather.
Yeah.
So when that happens, like you said, you've been cut from 2 teams, then you blow out your knee in Canada. Mm-hmm. What are you thinking? And from an athletic perspective, am I done, or were you still like, okay, but maybe I can do something else?
Well, I think it's important to realize that an ACL, when I blew it out it would have been in 2009, Had it have been 1992, it's game over. My career is over, right? But with the advancement of medical procedures, physical therapy, I just knew this was a setback, a big one, right? Blowing out your knees, an ACL, oh my goodness, I've had 4 surgeries, ACL by far the longest road to recovery. So I knew I was going to recover or get that clear medical mark that I can still compete at the elite level. But what was brutal, James, is that when I did get medically cleared, nobody wanted me, because when you don't look good on paper, although I had my medical papers that I'm clear, I'm healthy, I'm strong, I'm fast, I can still play, 3 cuts, blown out knee, nobody wants you. And so at that point, I realized my professional football career has come to an end. And so I had a couple options. Maybe I get involved in coaching, or I still felt like I had something left in the tank. And so some unique things started to line up. My mother had a coworker who was a bobsledder back in the day. My agent represented a bobsledder back in the day. And in college, you can't go to college to be a bobsledder. There's no NCAA level bobsledding team. And so some unique things started to line up, because what I realized is they recruit bobsledders from football and track and field. Well, hey, I kind of fit the mold on what they were looking for. And so although my professional football career didn't work out, I saw an opportunity. Now, this word has been abused since COVID, but I saw an opportunity to pivot, and that's what I did.
Did I read something correctly about did someone send them a tape of you
Right.
training, and that's what got you on their radar?
So there was some what we did is we built a film at this facility that I trained at in McKinney, Texas, called the Michael Johnson Performance Center, of me running short sprints. And it was more so to show professional football teams that I'm healthy. Well, I ended up sending some of this film to some drivers at the Olympic Training Center in Lake Placid, New York. And so that with the introduction got some traction and some movement. And so I remember I'm having this conversation with this driver at the Olympic Training Center. He's like, hey, why don't you come out here in a couple months, push a bobsled around. Let's even see if you like this sport. And I said, look, I'll come out, but if my agent finds a football team, I'm out, right? I'm out of here. I'm going back to football. And then true story, James, true story, 1 month before I am supposed to go get my cool runnings on, I get a phone call from this driver. He goes, Johnny, one of my guys has showed up overweight. We've got an open spot on my sled. Do you want to come up and compete in the U.S. 4-man team trials? And James, I'm on the phone thinking, okay, when's the race? He says it's in 2 days. I'm like, 2 days? I've never pushed a bobsled in my life. And he's like, Johnny, all you have to do is get inside the sled. And so, James, true story, I flew into the Olympic Training Center the night before team trials. My first time ever on ice was at the U.S. 4-man team trials, and we took 3rd place. It was unbelievable, James. Unbelievable.
So they didn't even start you out quarter way down the hill?
No, I'm off the top of the hill and U.S. team trials. Are you kidding me? I slipped getting in. I spiked my teammate in the back. I mean, it was hands down the worst load in my 4-year career of loading into a bobsled, because I don't know what I'm doing. And but we got it down the track.
For those listening, the top of a bobsleigh track is a terrifying place. I had a chance to do skeleton sledding in Calgary at Canadian Olympic Park, and that was one of the most terrifying moments of my life, because once you start out slow, but you're traveling pretty fast by the time you get to the bottom. But at least they warmed us up with a quarter way, and then we went halfway, and then we get to the full. So I literally can't imagine them just throwing you in. And then plus in bobsleigh, it's not like you get to watch. Like, you got to put your head down.
Yeah. And here's the funny thing. I struggle with motion sickness. And so, I'm like, when I committed to the sport, I can't take Dramamine every day for 4 years, right, to help with my motion sickness. So, James, I rode down in the bobsled with my eyes closed to help with the motion sickness. And so, although I am an Olympic bobsledder, I ride with my eyes closed.
Do they For those who are riding and not driving, do you have to lean and stuff, or are you
No,
just
that's
you just holding on?
cinematized. Yeah, that's cinematized through the movie Cool Runnings. Once you get in that sled, there's actually no moving because in a high pressure curve, if you're in the back moving around, you could potentially fishtail, a sled. Once you get in there, you need to be below the cowling. You don't need to be a wind tunnel. Can't have a shoulder sticking out, but it's more so hang on, brace, no movement, stay low. Your job's over. Once you're in the sled, it's hang on, stay low, get out of the wind tunnel.
It's amazing. Before I continue on with this story, because I want to follow this to the Olympics, but not everyone could go through the hurdles that you've gone through and then still stay in it. So many people would quit. When you think about the resilience that you brought in those moments, maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but where do you think some of that came from? Was some of that through your parents or your upbringing? What would you say?
Yeah, I grew up in a family that we were allowed to dream big. One of the things I remember my mom telling me at a young age, and she would get this and scripted on, just about everything is, if you believe it, you can achieve it. And James, it was so crucial for my brother and I'm the oldest of two, that if we came home from school on a Monday and we said we wanted to be a professional athlete, I'd have full support from my parents. And James, if I came home that next day on a Tuesday and said I want to be an astronaut, changed my mind, I want to be an astronaut, they would have supported it. And on Wednesday, if I came home and said, hey, I want to be a doctor, they would have supported it. And so what was crucial growing up is that it was okay to dream big and vocalize that and go after something. And it was never laughed about, or it was never, that's a small percentage. What's our backup plan, right? It was none of that. Now, I think there's some wisdom, obviously, as you get older to, where you take calculated risks and you understand the different, different pitfalls. But as a youth, growing up in that type of an environment, that helped quite a bit. It truly did.
That is amazing because a lot of kids didn't grow up with that.
No.
Came from the school of, hey, be realistic, and you
Right.
can't do that.
Yeah.
For sure. Looking back, was there ever a piece of advice that either of your parents gave you that stuck with you, still sticks with you today?
Well, it was possibly my parents or even my teachers or coaches growing up. It's very elementary advice. People start probably learning this in kindergarten or first grade. And it's two words, James. It's don't quit. And, as I survey the landscape today, there are times that you do need to pivot. And there are times in life when you've exhausted every opportunity. Hence my football career. It was time to move on. But there's so much wisdom packed in that elementary concept that we all learn at a young age, this ability to not quit. And so that has, as I look back on my career, and even now as I navigate this business landscape, it builds resilience, it builds perseverance, grit, things that you need in order to succeed by not quitting.
I was talking to Terrell Davis a while ago, and as Hall of Famer, won 2 Super Bowls. And when he told me that when he first made the league and the team went over to Hawaii to, prep in 2 days and all of that, and there was just this one moment where he was like, that's it, I'm done, I'm quitting. And he went to the hotel concierge. He's like, hey, so can you get me a ride to the airport? And in the end, he didn't quit, but it was just like how close that was for him. But because he didn't quit, then he's the Terrell Davis that we know today. So,
isn't that interesting? And I think that's some wisdom that we can lean on because, again, Terrell Davis, Hall of Famer, 2-time Super Bowl champion. Just an incredible look at his career looking back now. But he even battled with that, right? And so I think there's a misconception that these people who have massive success or success in their career, they've never pondered that, or they never got on the brink of quitting. No, they have. And some of them, get to that brink. but they continue to fight and push through. And so I think that's something that we can lean on, that if you are battling that idea of, I think I want to quit, I want to give up, know that other people have that same feeling. I would just encourage you to pause for a second. Let's see if we can press through.
When do we quit, though? Like, what do you advise people when, it's one thing for people to persevere. It's another thing for someone to be beating a dead horse and they should walk away. Like, how do we know that difference?
Yeah, this takes wisdom and discernment. There's a quote floating around culture, and I talk about this in one of my keynotes, that winners never quit. It's a very famous quote said by Vince Lombardi back around Super Bowl II. Guys are down at halftime. He comes in, delivers a magnificent speech, finishes with winners never quit. Guys go back, rally out, win the Super Bowl. And James, my goodness, this idea of winners never quit has been on bumper stickers, T-shirts, coffee mugs, hashtags. I mean, everybody's heard it. Here's the reality. Winners quit things all the time. Now listen, they quit things that don't work. And so there's a difference between I'm not quitting because I need to persevere, or when we look at something, and to your point, we don't want to sit here and just beat a dead horse over and over. We've exhausted all of the options. Then it is time to move on. Winners quit things all the time. James, they quit things that don't work. And so we're always actively looking, hey, is there a way around this? Is there a way through this? Can I go up? Can I go around? If there's not, then it is time to move on or look at different resources. And so again, here's where it takes wisdom and discernment to know when to press through and when to eliminate something.
I agree with that. And I think that's also sometimes a hard decision to make on your own, which is why it's great having coaches, mentors, close friends, people that are further down the road than us to give us that wisdom.
That's right. Yeah.
If we were to take success and put it into a pie, and one slice of that pie is going to be talent. So let's say in the realm of whether it be athletics or maybe public speaking or building a business, right? So one slice is going to be 10%, or is going to be talent. My question to you is, what percent is that, and what are the other pieces of that pie, do you think, as you've seen?
Yeah. So it's going to be different for each industry, but for sport, for an example, I've been given athletic genes, right? The Lord has blessed me with the ability with hand-eye coordination. But James, I cannot play basketball at all. And so it doesn't matter if I'm the first one in the weight room, the last one to leave. If I watch every NBA finals tape from, 1975 today, I'm not going to the NBA. And so each industry determines the talent size. And so in professional athletics, there needs to be a huge piece of the slice around this talent phase. Now in business, I'd say it's different. In business, what I noticed going from professional athletics to business is that the talent piece of the pie doesn't have to be as big. What does have to be as big? The ability to learn, the ability to communicate, the ability to fight through the no's that you're going to receive. Do you need some talent at, let's just say, as a public speaker, being able to communicate? Can you learn that? I think you can. I think it does come natural to some people, or they're just gifted with that. But what fired me up going from sport, where you need the big piece of the slice of the pie for success to be talent on the physical realm, in the marketplace of business, you don't. And that got me excited, because now I could design my pie of success with grit, perseverance, determination, continuing education, the ability to lower my pride and let people speak into my life who've had success in my industry. See, and so what am I doing? I am slowly shrinking the size of talent in this pie in the industry, in the realm of business. That gets me fired up, because that was completely different from the world of professional athletics. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, for sure. I like how you said that as well about how the athletic world, definitely there's a certain talent that's required. But in the business world, there's more level footing. And
That's right.
that opens the door for more people to be successful. I want to ask this about ego, and where does ego help in being successful, like in business, and where does it hurt?
Yeah, so I look at it two ways. Let me give you an example. When I was, let's take collegiate athletics for this example. You want to individually train like you're going to make your college team's Hall of Fame, right? You want to have that type of mentality. You want your ego out of the roof as an individual. That's where I want my mindset. That's where that's what I'm working towards. I believe that can happen. I mean, my ego level is high, believing I can make my collegiate athletic team's Hall of Fame. But I want my work ethic, James, to mimic a redshirt, walk-on freshman, even when I become a starter, even when I have a chance to become the school's all-time leading receiver and cement my spot in the Collegiate Hall of Fame for my athletic team. I want my work ethic to remain as a walk-on, trying to earn that scholarship and just make that bust. And so what does that take? It's understanding that my ego mentally, individually is going to be at a high level, but then I'm going to lower it when it comes down to my work ethic. And I'm going to soak everything as a sponge, just like a walk-on would, trying to make that team. And so you're literally playing both sides of the coin here. And you're noticing some keywords I'm coming back to. It takes somebody who can operate with wisdom and discernment to know what they're operating in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
If you were working with someone, whether it's in athletics or in business, and they have the talent and they have the work ethic, but you notice that their Achilles heel is they feel like an imposter. They don't believe in themselves enough. What would you do with that person to help them there?
Well, I'd relate my story because I tell you what, as a professional keynote speaker, I'm up against that every single day. James, I am a U.S. Olympian, but I didn't win a medal. James, my name has been in an NFL locker room, but at the end of the day, I got cut. I don't have a Super Bowl. I didn't make it long enough to earn the NFL pension. I mean, aren't these big keynote deals supposed to go to the Super Bowl champion and the Olympic medalist? James, no. These deals go to the people, the men and women who get after it, who understand that their effort actually matters. And so that's an area that I battle every single day. And so somebody who's walking in this imposter syndrome, one, let's identify that, and let's know that, hey, let's call it out, but let's understand that it's your effort level that matters every single day. And so we'd have to walk through that together.
So you eventually make it to the Olympics, which is so cool. So many people would love that experience. And walk us through that a little bit. Like, what was that like? Opening ceremonies, walking with Team USA, winter sports. You're a guy from Texas.
Yeah. It's interesting. When I made the Olympic team, so they announced the Olympic team 3 weeks before the Olympics. We're in Eagles, Austria. It's 5 p.m. in Colorado Springs, our headquarters for Team USA. It's midnight in Eagles, Austria, where I'm at, because we just finished our last World Cup before the Olympics. We're all in this room, and the head of our national governing body gets on and announces the Olympic team. And to hear my name, James, it's interesting because I've always been on the other side of it in the professional realm. I'm always the guy getting cut or getting sent home. And so now, to make the Olympic team, to walk in opening ceremonies, to wear the red, white, and blue, to hear them say the United States of America, it was like my athletic career has been redeemed, right? It was so special being a small part of the 230 athlete delegation that the United States sent to compete on a world stage, the world's greatest athletic stage. It was unbelievable. It was remarkable. It was moments that I will obviously never forget. But it's a reminder that what you do when no one is looking or watching, when there's no Olympic stadiums, when there are no fans, no media crew, matters. And so one of the things that I speak on consistently, and one of the things I hold myself to, is, does my effort level actually match the outcomes that I'm hoping for? Because, James, here's what I know about you and I know about all of our listeners, is that we all have dreams for our career or our family or our community. The question that I'm always asking myself, and I'd ask our listeners to ponder, is, do our actions, our effort level, do they actually match what we hope for? What a healthy question for us to consider. And now that I have the proof by making an Olympic team and walking in opening ceremonies, I can say that credibly, that what you do when no one is looking or watching actually matters.
I think a lot of people can get excited about an idea and jump into it. I'll throw myself in this boat as well. And we go into it and write things on our mirrors or whatever it is. We get to the gym.
Yeah.
And 21 days later, that enthusiasm has waned. And so how do people, because I think that's a natural human thing to then start to realize, oh, this is harder than I think. What's your advice for people of in that moment to catch it early, to go, no, save this, get back on track?
Well, what you've identified there in that example is helping people understand what's the difference between motivation and discipline. Because, James, what you just explained there, and we all go through it. I'm guilty as charged here. What this is when a new idea comes up or something that intrigues us and we go after it, want to pursue it, motivation is fleeting, right? It's up, it's down, it's all right. It's kind of like bathing. It's something that we need to do daily because it goes away. And there's nothing wrong with it. We need motivation, and let's go find motivation. But what we need to understand is that it's these little disciplines that are consistent over time. And they tend not to be sexy, James. They're these little disciplines over and over and over and over and over that ultra performers begin to understand. Because you made a good point. When someone finishes this podcast, they're probably going to be a little bit motivated. I want to know, what are they doing this time 3 weeks from now? Are they going to stay motivated? Well, do they have these little disciplines in place to continue to go after what's important to them?
Yeah, that's a great question and great thoughts for sure. How do you know when Johnny Quinn has gotten off track of the standard that you expect of yourself? If that happens, but if it does ever happen, how do you know that's happening? And then what's the quick correction?
Well, it does. Yeah. And I think we all, I'll go on a limb here and say everybody struggles with that. How do you maybe prevent yourself from going down these bunny rabbit trails, or when you get off an alignment? One of the things that grounds me, James, I came across this quote a long time ago. One of my all-time favorite quotes comes from a guy by the name of Dale Partridge. And it goes like this: success at work without success at home, it isn't really success at all. And when I heard that or read that, it hit me. Because, look, I'm a type A extrovert. I come from a sports background. I'm very goal-oriented. I'm very good at putting on the blinders. Let's focus. Let's achieve. Let's get after it. But, James, if I leave my family as a train wreck, that's not success. And so here's one of the things that helps me stay in an alignment. My wife and I, we just celebrated year 10. And so of our marriage. We've been together for 14. We've been married for 10. We've got 2 beautiful children. James, 20 years from now, so let's say, I'll be married for 30 years, right? 20 years from now, when I come home from work and I hit that little garage door opener in my car and the garage door goes up, James, do I want my wife, her name's Amanda, do I want my wife saying, Johnny's home? Or do I want Amanda saying, Johnny's home? See what I'm saying here? And so what is this doing? This is making sure that my daily actions are in alignment with my long-term goals. And so I have these relationally, I have these spiritually, I have these in my business career. that's what keeps me in alignment when I begin to drift. Are my actions in alignment with my long-term goals? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So on that note about rituals, routines, alignment, do you have a morning ritual? And if so, what is that?
I do. I'm so glad you asked. I got this concept from a guy by the name of Darren Hardy. He wrote a book called The Compound Effect. And he talked about having these bookends because throughout our day, and I would imagine our listeners can relate to this big time, throughout our day, we get pulled in multiple directions. Maybe we got to, you get a call from school, you got a sick kid. And I mean, you want to talk about turning your day upside down. Something happens at work. We got a failed product launch. It doesn't matter. We get pulled in all these different directions. And so what really impacted me with his book, this idea of creating these bookends, a morning routine and an evening routine, the bookends. Because if I can control that, then what it does is it helps me set in motion these processes. And so if you go to my website, johnnyquinnusa.com/blog, I timestamp my morning routine. And so I've got everything from the type of content that I consume, what I watch, what I read. James, I even wrote down what I eat. Okay. I mean, look, I'm a type A extrovert. I mean, I've got it all written down there. But what this does is it helps me win the day, right? And so what I started to realize is that, James, have you ever heard of the 4 a.m. club? These are those psychos that get up at 4 a.m.
Heard of the 5 a.m. club.
Yeah,
but
5
not the
a.m. Look,
4.
I don't do that because I've got 2 young kids. If I got up at 4 a.m., I'm not making it home to dinner, right? And so, but what I started to realize, it doesn't matter what time you get up, and maybe you do need to get up earlier, but it really doesn't matter. What matters is what do you do right when you get up? And so if our listeners want to go see my morning routine, johnnyquinnusa.com/blog/morning routine, that'll take you right there. And you can see the type of content that I consume, what I eat, what I drink in the morning. I mean, it's as a type A extrovert, I've got even timestamp, James. I mean, I've got it all laid out there. And look, obviously people don't need to do exactly what I do, but maybe that gives an idea around some disciplines that people can start to implement, but very big into morning routine.
I'm going to go there.
Check it out.
I'm always changing up my morning routine. Yeah. It's one way for a while and then another way.
Yep.
And but I'm going to go to your site and look at your timestamps. That'll be
there
great.
You go.
I'll have
there you go.
all that in the show notes, by the way, for those of you who are listening and you didn't quite catch that. You don't have to write it down. We're in the digital age. Not like pre-internet. You had to write down the phone number from the TV of the thing you wanted to buy.
Yeah.
So, do you have a mantra that is something that you come back to again and again?
Well, it's funny. One of I'm looking at it right above my camera. I've got a little, I put it in 72 font, bold. Not really designed nice, but it's a reminder, have a bias towards action. And so when I get lost throughout the day, maybe I took a phone call that rocked my world. Maybe got a no from a prospect that I thought I was going to close. It's really, you might be able to see my eyes. I'm literally looking just above my camera. I got this little sign right in my, have a bias towards action. See, this is what ultra performers begin to understand in sport and business, is that we don't have everything figured out. We don't, James. But what do we continuously do? We continuously take these action steps to move forward. And so that's one of the things that I do in sport, that I currently do in business, is I have a bias towards action.
I love that. And if you're listening and you don't have a mantra that's simple, that's accessible, that sort of refocuses you, consider that. I think it's it's such a powerful tool, and it doesn't take long. So as we begin to wrap up here, and for those who are listening who are business owners or executives, where is Johnny Quinn's sweet spot in terms of how you impact organizations? Because I know with your business now, you speak a lot on stages, you have a lot of different messages, but if there was like that one thing that this is my gold medal, what would it be?
James, I help leaders build unstoppable teams by leveraging the different tools and strategies that shape my Olympic and professional football career. And so you hit it right on the head, whether it's through a keynote or through a workshop. In this post-COVID world that we live in, the companies, the nonprofits, the organizations that are winning, what they are doing is they are building unstoppable teams. And I got this concept from a book that I'm currently reading called Turning the Boats Around. The old school way of building a team was this leader-follower model. We've got these incredible leaders, and what happens is when the leader leaves, James, there's this massive gap of unproduction that happens because we lost the leader. All they did was create followers. No, what I dig into and design from the keynote stage and in a workshop setting is this leader-leader model, not leader-follower, leader-leader. We're continuously to develop leaders so that when life happens and we lose a leader, it always hurts, but it doesn't hurt as long. Why? Because we've been developing leaders. And so I would encourage any of our listeners, if you ever bring in a outside speaker, a general session type speaker, I would love to be your guy.
Fantastic. Let me ask this about teams real quick. In your work with teams, what do you find is the one or two top problems that make teams dysfunctional?
Yeah, silos. Silos are a big one. Right hand not knowing what the left hand's doing, particularly when people are having success. And that could be a little bit of that imposter syndrome creeping in. Well, I don't want to necessarily share what I'm doing over here because then they're going to take from my pie. The other thing is personality differences. Now, here's what I've noticed of elite teams that I've been on. These elite teams, James, are made up of people with different personalities, different backgrounds, different belief systems. But these elite teams understand that we can all come together for one common goal. And here's what they figured out. They found a way to get the job done with the current resources available. And so that's one of the things I help break down as I provide these action steps on how we can find a way to get the job done with the current resources available.
Well, I saw some of your clips speaking on stage. Obviously, you're very talented at this. And for those of you who are listening, all the show notes will you can go to jamesrobbins.com/podcast and look up Johnny Quinn, and I'll have all the information in there. Johnny, I really want to thank you. You've been so generous with your time. And one of the things I have admired about you in our very short history together is that I see certain people in life as just these examples that the rest of us can follow. Like, not everybody was born with the kind of talent that you were born with, but yet that talent still came with incredible setbacks and things that would have derailed a lot of people into a life where they just had given up on their dreams. But you just kept at it. And then now you're taking those lessons, realizing that everyone's human, not only your successes, but also your failures and how that's just life. And you're helping people with that. So I respect that. I'm inspired by that. And I'm really grateful that you stopped by to share this with our guest.
Thank you, James. That was so kind of you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Johnny.
Thanks.